My fiancé told me, delete every female contact if you love me. I nodded. Then I deleted her contact first. She discovered when I ignored her 25 missed calls. I, 29M, thought I knew what love looked like until my fiancé showed me what control disguised as love actually was. What started as a simple request became the catalyst for the most satisfying revenge I've ever executed. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. She was beautiful, successful, and everyone loved her. But behind closed doors, the demands started small and grew into something I barely recognized. It began with innocent questions about my female coworkers. She'd ask who I talked to during lunch, why I was texting late, whether any women had messaged me. I brushed it off as normal relationship curiosity. Then she started checking my phone while I showered, going through my social media follows, questioning every interaction I had with women. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening. I was scrolling through my contacts, looking for my college friend's number to invite him to our engagement party. She was sitting beside me on the couch, and I felt her eyes boring into my screen. She told me she'd been thinking about our relationship and realized something was bothering her. She said she couldn't handle me having female contacts in my phone anymore. It made her feel insecure and disrespected. If I truly loved her, I would delete every single female contact to prove my commitment. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. She was completely serious. Her eyes had that steely determination I'd seen before when she decided something was non-negotiable. She explained that it wasn't about trust, but about respect for our relationship. Other women had no business being in my phone when I was about to be a married man. I asked her about work contacts, family friends, even my own sister. She said work contacts could stay only if they were absolutely necessary, but personal female friends had to go. Even my sister's contact could be deleted since I could always reach her through our parents. The audacity hit me like a physical blow. I looked at this woman I was supposed to marry and saw a stranger. But instead of arguing, something clicked in my mind. I nodded slowly and told her she was right. If it would make her feel better, I'd delete them all. Her face lit up with satisfaction. She kissed my cheek and said she knew I'd understand because I truly loved her. She even offered to help me go through the contacts to make sure I didn't miss any. I told her I preferred to do it myself, that it felt more meaningful that way. She agreed, saying she trusted me to be thorough. I opened my contacts and started scrolling, making a show of selecting and deleting female names. She watched with approval as I removed college friends, work acquaintances, and distant relatives. Then I reached her contact. Without hesitation, I selected it and hit delete. She was so focused on watching me eliminate other women that she didn't notice her own name disappearing from my phone. I continued deleting a few more contacts, then closed the app and told her it was done. She hugged me tightly, saying she felt so much better and that this would strengthen our relationship. I smiled and agreed, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. The next morning, she left for work as usual. I went to my job, had lunch with my male coworkers, and came home to find her cooking dinner. Everything seemed normal. She was chatty and affectionate, clearly pleased with her victory from the night before. But I had already started planning my next move. I spent the evening researching apartment listings and calculating how much money I had saved. I also began reaching out to friends through social media and email, explaining that I might need their support soon. The real test came the following day. She had a work emergency and needed to stay late. She tried calling me around 7 p.m., but my phone didn't ring. She tried again at 7:30, then 8 o'clock. By 8:30, she was probably starting to panic. I was at the gym, deliberately ignoring the vibrations in my pocket. I knew she was calling, but since I'd deleted her contact, her number showed up as unknown. And I had a strict policy about not answering unknown numbers. When I finally got home around 10 p.m., I found her car in the driveway and the lights blazing inside. She was pacing in the living room, her phone clutched in her hand. The moment she saw me, she rushed over and demanded to know why I hadn't answered her calls. I pulled out my phone and showed her the call log. 25 missed calls from an unknown number. I told her I never answer unknown numbers because of spam calls and scammers. She stared at the screen, confusion replacing anger. She said she'd been calling me for hours, that she was worried something had happened. I looked at her with genuine puzzlement and asked why she hadn't called from her own number. She said she had been calling from her own number. That's when I opened my contacts and showed her the screen. I scrolled through the remaining names slowly, letting her see that hers was nowhere to be found. I told her I'd followed her instructions exactly and deleted every female contact, including hers. The color drained from her face. She stammered that she hadn't meant for me to delete her number, that it was obvious she should be the exception. I tilted my head and asked why she would be an exception when she was the one who said no female contacts should be in my phone. She tried to explain that she was my fiancée, that it was different. I reminded her that she'd said even my sister could be deleted since I could reach her through our parents. Following that logic, I could always reach my fiancée through her parents or her work if there was a real emergency. She became increasingly agitated, saying I was being ridiculous and that I knew what she meant. I maintained my calm demeanor and insisted I was just following her rules. She had been very clear that having female contacts was disrespectful to our relationship. She demanded I add her number back immediately. I asked if that meant I could also add back my sister, my female coworkers, and my childhood friends. She said no, that was completely different. I asked her to explain how it was different. She struggled to articulate why she deserved special treatment while other women in my life didn't. She said she was my partner, my future wife. I pointed out that my sister was my family, my coworkers were professional contacts, and my friends had been in my life longer than she had. The argument escalated quickly. She accused me of being petty and manipulative. I remained calm and told her I was simply respecting her boundaries. She had made it clear that female contacts made her uncomfortable, and I was honoring that request completely. She tried a different approach, softening her voice and saying she understood I was making a point, but that this was taking things too far. I asked what point she thought I was making. She said I was trying to show her how unreasonable her request was. I told her I wasn't making any point at all. I was genuinely trying to be the partner she wanted. She had expressed that female contacts in my phone made her feel disrespected, so I eliminated all of them. I asked if she was saying her feelings about this issue weren't valid. She was trapped by her own logic, and she knew it. She couldn't argue that her request was reasonable while simultaneously demanding to be exempt from it. She tried to say that obviously she should be the exception, but I kept asking why. The conversation went in circles for over an hour. She alternated between anger, pleading, and trying to guilt me. She said I was ruining our relationship over something stupid. I reminded her that she was the one who said this issue was important enough to potentially end our engagement over. Finally, she broke down crying and admitted that maybe she had been unreasonable. She said she was just scared of losing me and that seeing other women's names in my phone made her feel threatened. I listened sympathetically and told her I understood her fears. But then I told her something that changed everything. I said that her request had made me realize something important about our relationship. If she could so easily demand that I cut ties with every woman in my life, what would be next? Would she ask me to quit jobs if I had female bosses? Avoid family gatherings if my female cousins were there? I explained that her demand wasn't about love or respect. It was about control. And I couldn't marry someone who needed to control my relationships with half the human population to feel secure. She protested that it wasn't about control, that she just wanted to feel prioritized. I asked her if she would be willing to delete all her male contacts to make me feel prioritized. She said that was different because she wasn't attracted to any of them. I pointed out that I wasn't attracted to most of the women she'd made me delete either. My sister, my elderly coworkers, my married friends with children. Her logic only made sense if she assumed I was incapable of having platonic relationships with women. The conversation revealed the depth of her insecurity and controlling nature. She admitted she'd been checking my phone regularly, monitoring my social media activity, and even asking her friends to watch my behavior when we were out together. I realized this woman I'd planned to marry had been systematically isolating me from female relationships while surveilling my every move. The phone contact demand was just the latest escalation in a pattern I'd been too blind to see. Update 1. The next few days were tense. She kept asking when I was going to add her number back, and I kept deflecting. I told her I needed time to think about our relationship and what her request had revealed about our dynamic. She tried everything. She showed up at my workplace during lunch, claiming she needed to talk to me about wedding planning. She enlisted her mother to call me, saying she was worried about her daughter. She even had her best friend reach out, suggesting we all grab dinner to work things out. But I held firm. Every time someone contacted me on her behalf, I explained calmly that I was following my fiancé's rules about female contacts. Since she had insisted that having women's numbers in my phone was disrespectful to our relationship, I was respecting that boundary completely. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Her own mother pointed out that if I couldn't have female contacts, then technically her daughter shouldn't be contacting me either. Her best friend asked if she really expected to communicate with her fiancé through intermediaries for the rest of their marriage. Meanwhile, I was quietly making preparations. I found a new apartment and put down a deposit. I started moving my belongings gradually, taking small items each day so she wouldn't notice. I also reached out to mutual friends to explain the situation before she could spin her own version. Most people were shocked when I told them about the phone contact demand. Even her closest friends admitted it seemed extreme. Several of my male friends said they'd never tolerate such controlling behavior from a partner. I also consulted with a lawyer about the engagement ring and our shared assets. Since we weren't married, things were relatively straightforward. The ring was legally mine to keep, and we had no joint accounts or property. After a week of this standoff, she finally snapped. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, using the spare key I'd forgotten to retrieve. I came home from work to find her sitting on my couch, her phone in her hand. She said she'd figured out my game and that she was done playing along. She demanded I stop being childish and add her number back immediately. I asked if that meant I could also add back all the other female contacts she'd made me delete. She said no, that was still off the table. I asked her to explain why she deserved special treatment. She said because she was my fiancée, because she loved me, because we were supposed to be building a life together. I told her that my sister loved me too, that my female friends cared about me, that my coworkers were part of my professional life. If her love gave her special privileges, why didn't theirs? She accused me of being deliberately obtuse, of twisting her words and making everything more complicated than it needed to be. I told her I was simply applying her logic consistently. That's when she made a crucial mistake. She said that if I really loved her, I would understand that she was different from other women. She was my partner, my priority, my future. Other women were just distractions and potential threats. I asked her if she really believed that every woman in my life was a potential threat to our relationship. She said that wasn't what she meant, but her actions suggested otherwise. Why else would she need me to delete their contacts? She tried to backtrack, saying she just wanted to feel secure in our relationship. I pointed out that security built on isolation and control wasn't real security at all. It was just fear masquerading as love. The conversation became heated. She accused me of being manipulative and cruel, of punishing her for expressing her feelings. I reminded her that she was the one who had issued an ultimatum. I was simply living by the rules she had established. She finally broke down and admitted that maybe she had been wrong to ask me to delete the contacts. She said she was willing to compromise, that I could add back some of the women if it meant we could move forward. But it was too late. Her willingness to compromise only came after she realized the consequences of her demand affected her too. She hadn't learned anything about respect or trust. She was just trying to find a way to maintain control while avoiding the inconvenience of her own rules. Update 2. I told her I needed more time to think, that her admission had raised new questions about our compatibility. She begged me not to throw away 3 years over one mistake. I reminded her that this wasn't one mistake, but a pattern of controlling behavior that I was only now fully recognizing. She left that night, but not before making one final demand. She said that if I was going to continue this charade, she wanted her engagement ring back. She claimed it was a symbol of our commitment, and if I wasn't committed, I shouldn't keep it. I looked at the ring on my finger and realized she was right about one thing. It was a symbol of commitment, but not the kind of commitment I wanted to make. I slipped it off and handed it to her without a word. She stared at the ring in her palm, clearly not expecting me to actually give it back. She said she didn't really want it back, that she just wanted me to fight for our relationship. I told her that fighting for a relationship meant working together to solve problems, not one person demanding total capitulation from the other. She put the ring back on the coffee table and said she was leaving it there until I came to my senses. I picked it up and handed it back to her, telling her I had come to my senses. That's why I couldn't marry her. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day moving the rest of my belongings to my new apartment. I left the spare key on the kitchen counter along with a note explaining that I was ending our engagement. In the note, I thanked her for showing me what I didn't want in a marriage. I explained that her demand to delete female contacts had revealed fundamental incompatibilities in how we viewed relationships, trust, and respect. I wished her well and asked her not to contact me. I also sent messages to our mutual friends and family members, explaining that the engagement was off. I kept the explanation simple. We had different views on what a healthy relationship looked like, and we had decided to part ways. Most people were supportive, though some tried to convince me to work things out. Her mother called me several times, saying her daughter was devastated and that all couples go through rough patches. I explained that this wasn't a rough patch, but a fundamental incompatibility that couldn't be resolved. My own family was relieved. My sister admitted she'd never liked my ex-fiancée, saying she always seemed possessive and controlling. My parents said they'd noticed how I'd become more isolated since we'd been together, but they hadn't wanted to interfere. The most validating response came from my female coworkers. When I explained what had happened, they were horrified. One of them said she'd dealt with a controlling partner before and recognized the signs. Another pointed out that if I'd given in to this demand, the next one would have been even more extreme. Update 3. It's been 3 months since I ended the engagement, and I can honestly say it was the best decision I ever made. The relief I felt after cutting ties was immediate and profound. I hadn't realized how much stress her controlling behavior had been causing until it was gone. She tried to contact me several times in the weeks following our breakup. She sent long emails explaining how she'd realized her mistakes and wanted to work on herself. She had friends reach out saying she was in therapy and learning to be less controlling. She even showed up at my new apartment once, claiming she just wanted closure. But I maintained my boundaries. I didn't respond to the emails. I told mutual friends I wasn't interested in updates about her progress, and I didn't answer the door when she came by. I'd learned that her version of change usually meant finding new ways to get what she wanted. The most telling incident happened about 6 weeks after our breakup. A mutual friend told me she'd started dating someone new and had already begun exhibiting the same controlling behaviors. She was checking his phone, questioning his female friendships, and making demands about his social media activity. This confirmed what I'd suspected. Her behavior wasn't about loving me too much or being uniquely insecure about our relationship. It was about her need to control her partners. I was just the latest in what would probably be a long line of men who would have to choose between their autonomy and her approval. I've since reconnected with many of the female friends I'd lost touch with during our relationship. It was embarrassing to admit that I'd allowed someone to isolate me from people I cared about, but everyone was understanding. Several of them said they'd noticed my gradual withdrawal but hadn't known how to address it. My sister was particularly happy to have me back in her life fully. She admitted that she'd felt hurt when I'd become less available, but she'd assumed it was just normal relationship adjustment. When I told her about the phone contact demand, she was furious on my behalf. I've also started dating again, and the contrast is striking. The woman I'm seeing now has never once asked to check my phone or question my friendships. She's secure enough in herself and our relationship to trust me completely. It's refreshing to be with someone who sees my female friendships as a positive thing rather than a threat. Looking back, I realized that my ex-fiancée's demand to delete female contacts was never really about the contacts themselves. It was about establishing a precedent for control. If I'd complied without resistance, she would have known she could make increasingly unreasonable demands, and I would cave to keep the peace. By deleting her contact first, I turned her own weapon against her. She experienced firsthand how it felt to be cut off and isolated, even if only temporarily. More importantly, it forced her to confront the logical conclusion of her own demands. The 25 missed calls weren't just about her inability to reach me. They represented her panic at losing control, her realization that the rules she'd established could be applied to her too. In that moment, she understood what she'd been asking me to accept in my relationships with other women. Some people have said my response was petty or that I should have just talked to her about my concerns. But I tried talking to her about her controlling behavior before, and she'd always dismissed my concerns or turned them back on me. Sometimes the only way to make someone understand the impact of their actions is to let them experience the consequences firsthand. The engagement ring sits in my jewelry box now, a reminder of what I almost settled for. I kept it not out of spite, but as a symbol of the lesson I learned. Love shouldn't require you to diminish yourself or cut ties with people who care about you. Real love enhances your life. It doesn't restrict it. I'm grateful for that Tuesday evening when she made her demand. Without it, I might have married someone who would have spent our entire relationship trying to shrink my world to fit her insecurities. Instead, I'm free to build relationships based on mutual respect and trust. The best revenge wasn't deleting her contact or ignoring her calls. It was recognizing my own worth and refusing to accept less than I deserved. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away from someone who doesn't value the person you are.